This is Tim.
I'm Mulele.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim with Mulele in Tokyo. Happy New Year. You'll be hearing this on January 8th. As the time that we're recording, before we get to the comics we're going to talk about, Mulele has a new installment in his ongoing saga with his former employer.
Yeah, well, a couple of people were asking me about it at the Kaigai Manga Fest, so I thought I'd just give a quick update. Things have been going, well, smoothly, I guess. I mean, the lawyer for the other side is pretty incompetent, and we have been watching him like turn in his documents late and really say nothing, and a lot of what he turns in gives us more questions than answers. And the latest one is trying to establish whether or not the school is the school has a contract with the teachers, or the teachers have a contract with the students, or who has a contract with who. The main complaint being, or the main argument being, that we are independent contractors, essentially individual companies, rather than employees. It's a benefits dispute. So at this point, the last court hearing being December 21st, the judge kind of said, okay, let me speak to you guys individually, and suddenly we're in negotiations for a settlement, because I think the judge realized that, man, the defense has got nothing, and let me just try and work this out, because basically the judges are heavily involved in any sort of settlement, and it's in their best interest to find a settlement, because they don't have to write a decision, and it just makes it easier for them to do their job. So they're always searching for that, and sometimes they'd like to kind of bend the weaker party towards the stronger party. But the thing that I noticed is that the lawyer, or the thing that I feel, I don't know for sure, but the lawyer for the other side seems to be getting paid by the court visit. So he's got no interest in stopping this dog and pony show, whatever it is.
Okay.
And so his client seems to be making a lot of really stupid decisions made on what I assume is bad information. Now, the claim that I'm making here, I have no way of proving it, so it's just my own speculation at this point.
Okay.
But it essentially seems that everybody understands that they're going to lose, but that my former employer is going to lose, but most likely they're going to try and fight it out to the end for some unknown reason. I don't know what the strategy is on their side, but I mean, everybody else is just kind of scratching their head like, what? So it could suddenly be done in a couple of months, but even though in December we had a court date to start talking about settling, our next court date is in February. So, I'll still continue to get paid during this time. And unless my former boss shows up to the next court date, I have a feeling that it's a stall tactic, a weird one, but they've done this before. So, I'm in no hurry, because during these court proceedings, they have to continue to pay me. The fact that the next court date is 2 months out means I get 2 more paychecks. they can clown around all they want. And at the end of this, since everybody's sure they're going to lose, that the defendant's going to lose, basically, it means that at the end of all of these court dates, I get one final payout. Either I get my job back or I get a severance package. I'm kind of okay with both. But it puts them in a very weak position.
Yeah.
And I'm fine. I'm just making comics until then. But that's pretty much where it's at right now. But it is just kind of like a weird kind of like nonsense game.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like their lawyer is working at cross purposes with them.
Well,
it's not really doing them any favors, like you said.
If it really is that, it's actually malpractice. But when my lawyer at one point accused the other lawyer of not telling his client all the information that he needed to make a correct decision, the guy simply said, I tell him what I think he needs to know. You think he needs to know something else? You call him. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Never mind then. But yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah. I mean, I'm paid until it ends. So.
Sure. Yeah. Sounds good. Okay.
Actually, one last point of this. We tried to negotiate a settlement when we first started this thing, before any of the provisional disposition that I'm receiving now started, and it was for 14 months' pay. By the next court date, it will have been 14 months since we started this thing.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so it's just, and they've had to pay all of that money. And most likely they're going to have to pay more than that. So it just boggles my mind how they can kind of come to this set of decisions.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's about it.
Okay. All right. Well, so this time we've got a couple of comics that were submitted through the internet. The first one is by a guy called Chris Calderon, and it's called The Adventures of Rage. And so he sent us like the first two issues, which are both about 10, 12 pages. And now he gave me a little summary in the email, but I'm not going to read that right now because, well, I want to just explain the issue, the experience of reading the first issue. You're dropped right into a battle scene.
Yeah.
You know, what's called in medias res, in the middle of things. But, and you know, that's a very valid way to start a story, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And I felt like he wasn't doing it the right way. And so then in order to talk about it here, I thought, well, what's a good example of it? Well, everyone's favorite example, the original Star Wars.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
And I went back and watched the first scene. So now, of course, you know, well, the problems with The Adventures of Rage, I mean, we don't know anything about the characters. We don't know why they're fighting. We're not even quite sure who's the good guy. Yeah. We don't know their names. But now, if you watch Star Wars Episode 4, well, of course, you got the crawl at the beginning. That gives you some information. For some people, it might be TLDR. But even if you don't read it, there's enough kind of in that opening scene to kind of get you started. So first you've got, you know, the Star Destroyer chasing the smaller ship. And inside the smaller ship, we've got C-3PO and R2-D2 and another droid who's I don't know. Probably somebody knows the name of that droid. I don't. It's another 3PO type unit. And C-3PO is saying we're doomed and the princess won't escape this time. So that tells us, that gives us some tension. Like, they're under attack. And we know why they're being attacked because the larger ship is after the princess. And so the princess is on the ship with them.
We also shouldn't discount the fact that she's called princess. Automatically carries with it a lot of weight of being a damsel in distress and being generally good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was also something that was missing from this first story. We don't know which character is which or who is good. And in some cases, I couldn't even understand who was doing what. Yeah.
Well, that was my other problem, was trying to parse the art sometimes, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So, then, the Star Destroyer pulls their ship up inside it, and, all the soldiers are getting ready with their guns aimed at the door, and then the stormtroopers break through. Now, there is some other exposition after that, when Darth Vader comes in or whatever, but imagine if you sat down in the movie theater or put in the DVD, the screen says Star Wars, and immediately we've got stormtroopers breaking through the door. No crawl, no, oh, we're doomed, the princess won't escape this time. Just immediately we've got the stormtroopers breaking through the door.
Mm-hmm.
Would you know what the heck is going on? Would you know who to root for? Well, I suppose the fact that one set of soldiers has their faces exposed and the other set doesn't would kind of give you an idea who is good and who is bad. But you don't have any idea what the stakes are or, who any of these people are, what their backstory is. The scene doesn't even have any main characters in it until Darth Vader walks in.
Yeah.
So, this comic, the first issue is kind of like that. Now, when you get into the second issue, there's the story so far page that tells you more than what the first issue did, which is a problem. And there's more like dialogue and identification of characters in the second issue, but that's really too late because you want to pull people in the first issue and not just have us scratching our head trying to figure out what's going on and what the stakes are and who is the good guy.
Yeah. Sorry, I just want to comment on the first issue real quick.
Okay.
The problems of understanding the comic are kind of compounded by the fact that the PDF for the comic is actually 12 individual PDFs.
Well, as he sent it to us, it's individual graphics on Dropbox rather than one big PDF like we often get.
Yeah, and that was kind of insane. And I had to shrink it down every time I opened it up. So
yeah, it wasn't the easiest way to read it.
Yeah, but I found it frustrating, and at first I was like, I was gonna actually call you and say, look, man, let's not review this. Let's send it back to him and have him reformat it so we can just get to it. But get to it in a better way. But I stuck with it, and I do have some other things to say about it. But yeah, I do kind of agree that first issue is really, really rough.
Yeah, and then, as we alluded to already, the second problem with it was that sometimes I couldn't understand what I was looking at in individual panels.
Yeah.
Like on the second page of the issue proper, not counting the cover, the last panel, I see a guy with a sword. I think he turns out to be the good guy. There's another character coming to him on the right side with a sword. But the good guy, we see his back, and he's apparently swinging his sword, and we see a sound effect, chut. But I cannot tell what's in front of him.
Sorry, which page is this?
It's page 2_b.pdf.
Oh, in the first...
in the first issue.
Right, okay.
The top panel of that page has his face. He's kind of a bear, and it says Rag. And I'm looking at the bottom panel on that page. I can't understand. I mean, I see a couple of feet at the bottom there.
Yeah.
But I can't figure out what the other dark things in that panel are.
Well, the inking is so thick and dark that it's kind of obscuring the action.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, there seems to be some serious problems with composition of the shot. Doesn't know where to place the characters to get the best action, and doesn't know how to guide the eye through the action. And if every character is poking out of or jutting out of every panel on the page, then it makes for a really confusing page. I think it's just confusing because everybody this wasn't the worst page for that, but this one has a bit of that up top.
Yeah.
Where every figure is poking out of the top of the panel. And so, yeah, the composition, I think, makes it that much more difficult to read.
Yeah, that's true. And also there are several panels where like what's in the foreground and what's in the background is kind of hard to figure out also. It just feels kind of flat.
Well, I mean, I think thicker lines for the foreground and thinner lines for the background is the usual way to go. But this one seems to have just one value for all lines. And some people get away with that, like Jeff Darrow, who does Shaolin Cowboy. He has almost, not always, but pretty flat lines, same thickness. But things that are really up close are really thick. But he draws everything in such detail with no blacks in them that you can kind of see everything for what it is. Here, not so much.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any other things to point out about either of these issues of Rage?
Well, the first issue, yeah, it has those problems, and it looks like the artist was studying the figures and anatomy of comics, not of real life, and that's the first thing. But if you're going to study the comics, don't study the figures and anatomy from that. Study shot composition, timing, what information is necessary versus unnecessary. It seems that in certain scenes, the artist doesn't understand the difference between, or rather, the usefulness of a far shot versus a close-up, or the fact that when you put something on the page that people will see it, because it seems like, especially for example in page number 2_B, each element on the page is fighting for dominance. And so it kind of feels like the artist is shouting the entire time what's going on so loudly, in fact, that I really can't make out the words anymore. And so it has that kind of overpowering effect. Now, such a powerful artist should, with a bit of control, be much better. And as we go to the second issue, we see that he pulls back a little bit. He begins to understand composition a little bit better. Things begin to flow a little better. He's got some talking scenes, not just constant fighting and shouting. It suddenly seems to calm down and focus. What I think is happening here is that as the artist learns and tries to do more with their art, they are refining the style and beginning to pick and choose scenes a little bit, scenes and composition a little bit better. I still don't agree with a lot of it, and I think there still needs a lot of work, but this artist is on a good trajectory. This is not quite ready for prime time, but I would say in a couple of years, this artist could be. But they have to be willing to put in the work to kind of pull some of their comic storytelling chops up, like composition, drawing from life, not from comics, and also writing not from movies but from experience. Really trying to work out how people talk to each other, how things go. There seemed to be a little bit of a problem with the logic flow of some of the things. For example, when in the second story, the guy's homeworld is attacked and everybody's fighting everyone, and then he went off and killed some people because it's war, and then he was on leave. And it suddenly occurred to me that, if the war is in another country, you get leave. But if it's in your own country, you don't get shit. You fight until someone's done.
Yeah. And
so the fact that he was on leave, went back home, and then suddenly his wife is dead, it's like, what? Of course, man. If you're on, but I mean, just the idea of that he was on leave didn't make sense to me, and it didn't make sense in that situation. So the logic flow is kind of one-dimensional.
Mm-hmm.
It's grabbing bits and pieces from movies or comics without understanding the systems that it's talking about.
Yeah, how it all fits together.
Yeah, so there's something that just doesn't quite work about the entire thing. Also about the invasion, how the president works, because there's a hostage situation at the White House, but the police side seems like a hostage situation at, say, a bank or at somebody's house. Not something that, I mean, the response to the president being held hostage inside the White House seems a little bit
lackadaisical.
Oh, not that it was so relaxed. It's just like, wait a minute, the type of people that would show up to that kind of situation, be a detective and a couple of uniforms. It would be something much, much bigger. I think there was also a tank in one of the scenes, but the feeling of military and whatnot is just not quite there. It feels much more like a regular police versus hostage taker negotiation from 1980s movie, and then every couple of pages we get a nice portrait of a famous person dropped in. Boom, we've got Bruce Willis, we've got
Schwarzenegger,
we got Baby Bush, and that was kind of odd. It's like the art style is kind of rough around the edges, and then suddenly, boom, a nice portrait. It's like, keep it kind of even. I'm not saying draw the portraits badly. I'm saying pull up the amount of effort that you put into the other pages or the other people that you draw, so that there's a little bit more of consistency. Because there are a couple of them that look like, oh yeah, he was looking at a photograph when he drew that one. And that really shouldn't happen. I mean, it happens in professional comics too, but I mean, I don't know, make it look a little bit more like it's a part of the style. I mean, having Bruce Willis in that scene doesn't add anything. I mean, with Schwarzenegger, it was supposed to be Schwarzenegger, but with Bruce Willis, I don't know, detective.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of thing can really distract you. I've heard other podcasts where they talk about, professional artists who do that, and they say it just takes them out of the story. Like, oh, gee, what's Nicolas Cage doing here?
Yeah. So definitely don't do it like that. But I would say overall, this comic I can't really recommend it. It's all over the place, and as far as understanding what comics are and what how the reader needs to have them to read them in kind of a fluid and comfortable way, this one is kind of illiterate, but the artist is well on their way to making good comics. They just have to spend more time and look at things other than comics and action movies to get there.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to our second comic in a moment. First off, I want to talk about a programming change. Currently, Critiquing Comics is normally released on the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. That will be true this week as well, in addition to the special Monday edition that you're listening to now. The change is that there will only be a Monday podcast every other week for the time being. Presumably, it'll usually be Deconstructing Comics. That next episode should be out on January 22nd. Of course, To the Bat Poles in its own podcast feed continues on the first, third, and fifth Thursdays of the month. As you know, we have a Patreon page that supports all these shows at patreon.com/deconcomics. A few months ago, we hit the goal of $80 a month, unlocking vintage episodes from 115 back to 101. I've been releasing them at the rate of one per week in reverse order. Last week, number 106 came out from December 17th, 2007, in which Mulele, Patrick, Paul, and I talked about being a creator who wants to do something other than what they're known for, and the problems such a creator faces in terms of audience expectations. Again, these episodes were being released because our Patreon was making more than $80 a month, but recently we dropped back under that $80 mark, so no more vintage episodes will be released for the time being. I've rejiggered the goals, so now episodes 105 back to 91 will be released if we hit a goal of $90 a month. A couple of new rewards for those giving at least $3 a month. For Batman 66 fans, there's a script for the Edward G. Robinson window cameo in the episode A Piece of the Action, which I scanned during my visit to the American Heritage Center in Laramie, Wyoming last summer. Also just released, Mulele and I give our thoughts on the latest Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi. You can get access to those rewards and more if you pledge at least $3 a month at patreon.com/deconcomics. And now back to the critiques. Now, speaking of well on their way, the other comic that we've got this time is written by Andre Mateus, who we talked about another comic of his a few months ago called Daysiders. And I never figured out how to pronounce that. It looks almost like Deciders, but it has an I in it. Deciders number 1 of Wolf and Man. We talked about in Critiquing Comics 117. This one, I thought, this one is called The Big Sheep, and I liked the writing much more than Deciders, and it's a different artist this time, named Rahil Mohsin. Mm-hmm. And I like his work a lot better than the previous artist. And it's a much different kind of story, too. It's kind of a noir thing, but it's sort of played for comedy, and all the characters are animals. The main character is a private eye who is a turtle called Slow Spade. And I thought the story was kind of fun and engaging, and found it much more interesting than the previous work. A few little problems with balloon placement here and there, but I thought it was definitely a step up from the previous one.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of easier to move through, and I did like the art. Design-wise, it was actually quite good. There are a couple of problems with not only balloon placement, but also with panel placement. It seems that the composition from panel to panel is really good, but altogether on the page, sometimes it's a little bit off.
Oh.
Just there are a couple of times, and I think there was a few weird balloon placement choices put to guide the eye through an unnatural composition.
Mm.
See if I can find it.
Well, I'm wondering if you're thinking of page 6. The next to last panel on page 6, there are two characters talking, and there's a big black empty space above their heads, but the word balloons are under them.
Yeah, that is a little bit weird. I didn't really notice it in the in the reading, but yeah, that kind of stuff is obscuring the figures, and why would you do that?
Yeah, it might have been, as you were just saying, it might have had to do with leading the eye. They might have been thinking of that, since the next panel also has its balloon at the bottom, and if you think of it that way, it sort of works because you're just reading smoothly across, but it doesn't work with the composition of that next to last panel.
Yeah. I think it was page 4 that I was thinking of.
Okay.
The third panel, what's it about then?
Mm-hmm.
And a little thing called None of Your Damn Business. So it actually should go, both of the side panels on the left side should be first, but it goes left side panel, then right side long panel, and then back to the left side. So it has kind of a weird U-turn in its panel arrangement.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the word balloons are placed kind of walks you through it, but yeah, it kind of works against your expectations.
Yeah, and so it's kind of a save, but at the same time, maybe avoid that kind of composition. I'm not sure what was so necessary that he had to do it this way. Maybe he wanted a full shot of the turtle and felt that the only way he could really pull that off is if he had it this way, but I don't know if it's really worth it to do it like that. The black and white line art is pretty stark, but there are some problems with the office scene. I feel where they have the leveler blinds making this striped pattern over everything.
Yeah, the Venetian blinds.
Sorry, Venetian. I said leveler. I'm not exactly sure why.
I'm not sure what that even means, but
okay. Anyway, it's for dramatic effect. It's pulled directly from noir film, but it is a little bit overpowering here in some cases. It's sometimes used well, and sometimes it's used poorly. And it seems that there were some problems with it. How to place it exactly. But once you leave that scene from page 8, it seems to kind of find itself again artistically, and everything's kind of smooth. Art-wise, I'm happy with it. Story-wise, I have a couple of problems.
okay.
Noir stories are a little bit difficult because people always go over the same tropes, and they go over them so hard that there's no way you can make a serious one without looking like a serious noir is just hard to pull off. So everybody makes a joke one, but the joke one is so hackneyed that it's kind of boring to read. This one is not so boring, but I kind of wanted something different, just anything different. And so when we get to the end of the story, and the guy's like, "Well, so much for this. What kind of story is this? I don't know. I didn't even get the girl." And well, why are you even listening to me? And it just ends, and I was like, yeah, why was I? I guess for critique, but and I was kind of disappointed by that. I wanted it to have some core, in some sort of internal thing, something that the writer wanted to say, but the writer didn't want to say anything. He just wanted to play in this genre, and it just doesn't quite have enough to defy its own existence, in my mind.
I wonder, so he's working with this other character, I'm not quite sure, was he a dog or what, who at the beginning he doesn't like, and at the end it's revealed that they ended up becoming partners as private eyes. That might have worked better if there had been more conflict between them at the beginning, or like more explanation of why they didn't like each other. I don't know, maybe that could have been played up a little more.
Yeah, I also think that their interaction wasn't so interesting that they would want to become partners. I mean, it's like at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, thanks and see you around. And there's no reason to become partners. So at the end, I was kind of like, well, why?
Yeah, I was like, there was supposed to be a twist, but it wasn't really earned.
Yeah, it was. I didn't get the girl, but I got the guy.
Like, oh, is your gate swinging the other way now? Or?
But he even says that. I didn't even get the girl, but I did get the guy.
Yeah.
Let's go, partner. And it's like, well, no. If the point is to say that he has decided on a different relationship, like he is gay, then fine. But I don't think that was the intention here.
No.
And so I was like, well, wait a minute, why? and you hated this guy in the beginning. Nothing happened. You solved the case basically by yourself. The thing that the other detective did for you was basically give you a lift to the ex-boyfriend's place, where you could actually discover your own clues and make your own conclusions, which were correct, and now you're partners.
Well, and he walked in and saved him on the previous page. I think that might be what's supposed to lead to them becoming partners.
I would have been much more satisfied if he had kind of come to the conclusion of, damn, he saved my life. Well, I guess he's not so bad after all. See you around, buddy. And I would have been fine with that. This is kind of going to a new level of, oh my God, you saved my life. We should be business partners. I mean, if not business partners, then gay lovers.
Something like that, yeah.
Right. And so for me, I've got a couple of problems with the story. The story itself, as you're reading it, is not bad. It's actually fine. Mm-hmm. It's just that it doesn't seem to have its own direction. Seems to be throwing a lot of elements in, but not quite understanding why it's doing it. And it doesn't examine anything in any kind of way to kind of give you some kind of twist on these tropes.
Yeah.
Maybe the next one I'll enjoy a little more. So please keep sending them in.
Yeah. And of course, both these comics I'll link to whatever availability there is to these comics for other people. You might have to pay for them, I think. I'm not sure, but they are out there somewhere. Yeah, so if you'd like us to critique your comics, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. So, till next time, this is Tim.
Hold on a second, man. I got some news.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, aside from the court stuff, there was this other thing. Iron Circus Comics put out a call for this anthology that they were doing about science fiction. Basically, if the plans for a $200 warp drive were suddenly available on the internet, what would happen? how would society change, or what would your character do, or anything, and kind of left it open. If a $200 warp drive were available to everyone, you go out and out of readily available parts, make this thing for $200, make a story. And so I pitched a story. It was accepted, and now I'm making the story. And this week I finally finished the first draft of my masterpiece for this anthology, called Cabbage Island.
Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that apparently Kickstarter coming soon. It's due in April, so I'm guessing maybe May or June it will finally appear as a part of this anthology. But coming soon, Cabbage Island.
Okay.
And maybe from January, so it is January now, but maybe mid-January, you'll start to see little bits and pieces of Cabbage Island pop up in my Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. But there you go.
Okay.
All right.
So this is Tim.
And this is Mulele.
And thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.
Wait a minute, man.
What?
What about your news?
I don't have any news.
All right. Well, thanks for listening.